May I have your attention, please? If we could get seated, we're going to begin the program. Good morning. My name is Michael Shepo, and I'm the Chief of the Investigative and Forensic Science Division at the National Institute of Justice. It's with great pleasure this morning that I welcome all of you to NIJ's Post-Conviction DNA Case Management Symposium, the first event of its kind which serves to bring together a multidisciplinary group of criminal justice practitioners who can serve to enhance post-conviction DNA testing and actually put it together and utilize it within your state and within local jurisdictions. I speak very literally this morning when I say that this is the first event of its kind, and I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you for attending. But also, I would like to thank the members of our steering committee who took the time out of their schedules to assist us with every aspect of putting together this symposium. Would the members of the steering committee please stand and be recognized? While all of our subject matter experts serve to ensure that we have a productive event, none of this would have been possible if it weren't for the assistance of the National Forensic Science Technology Center, all of their employees, and particularly Jocelyn Williams of GMA Consulting, who put together this event in a very short time frame. Thank you for organizing this amazing event. Delivering our opening remarks this morning is Dr. John Morgan, Deputy Director for Science and Technology at the National Institute of Justice. As Deputy Director, Dr. Morgan is responsible for the agency's science and technology portfolios and provides strategic and science policy advice to both the NIJ Director and other members of the Department of Justice. Prior to coming to NIJ, Dr. Morgan conducted research in the detection and mitigation of weapons of mass destruction at Johns Hopkins University. Dr. Morgan also served for 8 years in the Maryland House of Delegates on committees such as the Judiciary, Ethics, Commerce, and Government Matters Committees. He received his PhD in Materials Science and Engineering and also holds a BS degree in Physics. I look forward to 2 days of very insightful discourse with you, and it is with great pleasure that I introduce Dr. John Morgan.
Thank you very much, and good morning. Everybody is good here on a cold Florida morning. I'm told by Kevin Lothridge this is the only cold Florida morning all year, but that's fine. We're nice and warm and toasty inside, and we're very, very blessed and fortunate to be here and to be working on this very, very critical issue. For those of you who don't know about NIJ, and I think most of the people in this room, I think I've actually even seen in person at other NIJ events, but NIJ is the research, development, and evaluation arm of the Department of Justice, and I'm privileged to be the Deputy Director for Science and Technology there. We're basically scientists in service to the nation's criminal justice community, and it's a very unique way that the federal government tries to serve in the knowledge-building enterprise of the criminal justice system by improving the ability to use scientific knowledge to improve the administration of justice in our country. So NIJ is actually interestingly positioned to be involved in the post-conviction issue, because what we're about here today, as much as anything else, is the application of that kind of science to a very, very critical issue, and that is to examine wrongful convictions and exonerate those who are victims of that. NIJ's been involved in this activity for a number of years. It was actually as long ago as 1996 that NIJ published its guide, Convicted by Juries, Exonerated by Science, Case Studies in the Use of DNA Evidence to Establish Innocence After Trial. So that guide was a landmark in this field in highlighting some of the initial exonerations that occurred using DNA in criminal justice. Since that time, there have been over 200 exonerations, and the field continues, unfortunately, to grow. In that same period, Janet Reno, the then Attorney General, established the National Commission on the Future of DNA Evidence, which led to a range of programs to improve forensic science generally in the United States. It actually evolved into becoming the biggest assistance program administered by the Department of Justice in the last fiscal year. In fiscal year 2008, the Department of Justice did more assistance to forensic crime laboratories than it did to any other segment of the criminal justice community. That's an extraordinary evolution with a great deal of history behind it. And forensic science, as a result of those efforts and the efforts of many of the people in this room, not only the scientific community, but the forensic science community, has advanced dramatically in the last 10 or 15 years. We are fortunate that NIJ is the lead agency for assistance programs to the forensic science community. And under that, we have actually, since the beginning of our DNA initiative, have provided over $500 million in assistance to crime laboratories. This has had an enormous impact. We've more than doubled the capacity for our criminal justice community to use DNA in the last 4 years. We have added millions of individuals to the National DNA Index, and we have solved thousands of crimes under this program. It's an enormous success for the federal government. And for the state and local crime labs who actually made it happen. NIJ is very, very pleased that as an integral part of these activities, we have not only just written checks, but we've also tried to build the knowledge around these programs. Not just the knowledge of the bench science, but also the knowledge of the application of these scientific methods to improve law enforcement and to improve criminal justice in a fundamental way. So we've done everything from John Butler's work in developing new STR primers that allow for the extension of DNA techniques to smaller and more difficult samples, the development of expert systems. The folks at Marshall University and elsewhere have developed expert systems that will allow for the expedited processing of convicted offender samples. The people at West Virginia University with Project Foresight helping to understand the management of crime laboratories and how to improve the throughput and processes of crime laboratories. Our groundbreaking randomized control trial looking at the application of DNA in burglaries, showing that we can increase the clearance rate for burglaries by a factor of 4 or 5 through the aggressive collection of DNA evidence and its timely analysis. A groundbreaking study of probably the largest effect size seen in a criminal justice intervention in many, many years. And so these are all part of building knowledge to be able to allow us to be more effective and more just. Under these programs, NIJ launched its post-conviction efforts in 2007. We were given a specific appropriation under the Justice for All Act to do post-conviction programming. And the act was very, very specific with respect to how this money could be used. For example, it couldn't be used for evidence storage. We actually looked at that as a possibility. You cannot use these funds, these particular post-conviction funds, to build new storage facilities so you could retain evidence longer. There are other funding sources that NIJ has that can be used for that, our capacity program and that kind of thing, but not these post-conviction funds. There were also other restrictions that were put onto this funding under the Justice for All Act. The restrictions were, first, about evidence retention. There had to be in place an evidence retention regime in the state that applied for the money that was in line with certain federal regulations. And secondly, there needed to be a program of post-conviction relief under in the statute, either in the statute or the policies followed by the states that applied for the money. And these conditions were on top of all of our normal bureaucracy, which many of the people in this room are familiar with, that NIJ has to put onto all of its assistance programs. 3 states applied for that money, And after many discussions with our Office of General Counsel and others within our within NIJ and the Office of Justice Programs, we were not able to provide any funding to those 3 states because they could not legally comply with the requirements of the Justice for All Act. And this was a great frustration for us, and I know it was a frustration for the community. And I certainly felt like this needed to be rectified, as well as the rest of NIJ. We were given relief from those requirements under the FY08 budget bill. It allowed us to provide funding without necessarily holding everybody to the letter of the Justice for All Act. And so we released a new solicitation for the post-conviction funds last year. And as a result, we did get 5 applications, and we funded 5 applications. So for the first time, NIJ has an actual working post-conviction program, and we're very, very proud of it. And it is not just the grant awards themselves that we're proud of. We're also proud of the fact that we're trying to do knowledge building around those grants. So, for example, we're going to be evaluating a couple of them, actually looking at how they do business so that we can provide guidance to the rest of the country about the most aggressive programs in these states and how the rest of the country can learn from how those states have done business. In addition, we're going to be doing a major research effort looking in a more in-depth way than has ever been done before at the exonerations. Not just trying to say, well, whose fault is it? I think we need to get past that kind of stuff, quite honestly. There's been a lot of talk around this issue about we're going to point fingers at that forensic practice or that kind of eyewitness testimony or that law enforcement. We aren't going to do that anymore. At least NIJ isn't. What NIJ is going to try to do by looking at the exonerations is to provide the path forward. What did we do wrong so that we can do right, so we can be more just, so that we can have the knowledge necessary to do all of our jobs better? And we're really hoping that we can mine the information from those wrongful convictions in a positive way to create change in the criminal justice system. The third thing we're doing is what we're doing here today. We did a survey of the states after we only got 5 applications in, and to find out, well, why did only 5 states apply? And we got a variety of responses, but they basically fell into 2 main categories. One of the categories was, well, we just don't need to do that. We don't have enough demand for that to really justify us asking for federal funding. So these were states generally where you might have, a couple of people a year asking for, appealing and that kind of thing. And so there wasn't that much need in that context to do this. Now, of course, our 2 biggest programs that we're funding, Arizona and Virginia, are not based on that model. They're based on looking at a comprehensive review of all of the casework that's happened over a long period of time, as much as 20 years in the past, to examine whether there might be cases out there that need to be re-examined and do a much more comprehensive study, not just waiting for appeals to come in. The second reason we got was basically confusion over who is to apply for the award. Now, state administering agencies commonly apply for these kinds of awards, but state administering agencies don't know what post-conviction is. And they're like, we got a lot of feedback, like, what is this thing? What are you asking for? And the people in the Innocence Projects, in the crime laboratories, in law enforcement, in prosecutors' offices who did know what post-conviction was were not necessarily aware of the announcement or how to work together to put together collaborative teams to respond to the announcement. That is the reason, as much as anything else, why we're having this conference. For those states that feel that they have a need, for those states that feel that they can put together a collaborative team to respond to this because they have a need to really look more fundamentally at the casework that had been done in the past in some way, in some form, we wanted to bring together a group here today from as many states as possible, and we have 46 states and 1 territory represented here, to learn from the people who have successfully put together those collaborative teams and to give you an opportunity to meet each other on the ground of we're going to talk about post-conviction now. And we're hopeful that out of this will come a number of proposals into a new post-conviction solicitation. And quite honestly, we're still sitting on about $7 million at NIJ from prior years, unspent dollars in this area. And we want to, it doesn't do any good sitting at NIJ. It is the only money that goes unspent after year. NIJ, last year, we received something like $180 million in money for just forensic science programming, and we spent down to the dime. And that's what we do each year because we want to go back to Congress and say, yeah, we need to continue to help the forensic science community. So we always obligate down to the dime if we possibly can on all the rest of the programs. But we haven't been able to find people applying for this program. So at the least what we want to come out of this conference is enough states who are excited about this and are able to put together teams to put together 10 or 15 and under my dreams, hope and maybe even more proposals than we have money for. That would be great to come in and ask for this money, because we not only expect to have the $7 million, we also expect Congress to appropriate additional funding into this program out of FY09 as well. So this is going to be probably a $10, $12 million program that we're going to have to administer in FY09. And we would very much like to find teams that are able to respond to that in a positive way. So we also hope that out of this comes some other kinds of relationships too, because doing post-conviction, we feel can lead to collaboration in other areas as well. There's no reason why the crime laboratories, the law enforcement folks, the prosecution folks, the defense folks, and everyone else can't be working together a lot more on a broader range of issues to solve problems in criminal justice. We also hope that you'll leave here with a renewed sense of purpose about ensuring that justice is served. And I think that once you hear some of the personal stories of people here over the next couple of days, as well as learn some of the information that we'll be able to provide to you through the experts that we have invited here, that you'll not only have a renewed sense of purpose, but a renewed sense of how to create justice. And I hope more than anything else, for those of you who aren't in the forensic science community per se, I hope that you come out of here embracing forensic science as a critical ally in this task. I do not come from the forensic science community. I come from the scientific community. You heard my background from Mike, where I'm a refugee from material science and condensed matter physics here with you today. And I've come to know the forensic science community and the way in which they do business, and have gained an enormous respect for the way a forensic scientist has to work. I was commenting to Barry Fisher over dinner last night about this, and telling him, which is true, that I believe that the protocols and methods used in the forensic science laboratory would put to shame any university environment. The way in which a forensic scientist must track their work and be absolutely careful about everything they do and be able to defend everything they do is something you just don't see in the other scientific community. The forensic scientists that I know are extraordinary people and extraordinarily dedicated to what we're about here today, the application of science to creating justice. So with that, I'd like to also thank everyone who helped put this together, especially those from the national and state innocence projects who participated in the planning of this event. We very, very much appreciate the partnerships that we've been able to establish, and I hope to continue as part of this symposium. Those are very valuable to us, and we certainly hope that we'll be able to build on this symposium in the future. With that, I'd like to turn it over to the first panel. The panel is made up of two rather extraordinary individuals who have been working in this field for a long, long time. The first individual up at the podium here already is Jennifer Thompson Canino, who herself was the victim of a brutal rape many years ago and has become extraordinarily active in North Carolina in innocence issues and in justice issues. And she's going to share her story. And we're also going to share the story of Ronald Cotton, who has become a good friend to Jennifer and whose story is quite amazing as well. He was arrested for 2 separate burglary and rape incidents and eventually exonerated after receiving a sentence of life plus 54 years in the North Carolina State Penitentiary. I hope that you will listen with as much interest and as I will to these 2 individuals and to the rest of our speakers here over the next 2 days. And I hope that all of us will go away with that renewed sense of purpose to using science in the service of justice.